She comes from Romania. Her name is Mina Sava. She's architect from 1996 from the University IM Lincoln in Bucharest. From 2002, director of the architecture department of Steel, where she won different tenders. She is founder of the Association of Architects, the first Romanian team promoting these teams for education in children. Well, I give the floor now to Mina. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Virginia, for inviting me today. Just a moment to fix the presentation. I'm very happy to be here. I'm sorry I don't speak Spanish, although I understand Spanish very well. Okay, it's working. So today I will tell you our story about EduArq. Arquitectura, it's a wordplay actually. It means many things in Romanian. When children want to play a game, they say, let's play let's play hide and seek. And we choose this name because it appeals to children. But it also appeals to architects because it's very similar to Vitruvius' De Architectura. But the main reason is that it suggests a game. And the game is not just the game is not just a simple play, it's a play with rules. And if you know the rules, you can win the game or you can make the game better. Because we believe that the built environment has its own rules, and if you know the rules, you can play the better game of the built environment, and you can imagine better places to live in the future. And the best place to learn this game is a school. Ordinary schools, not architecture schools, not vocational schools, but ordinary schools. Their children can learn the basic rules of the built environment. And our challenge was not only to bring architecture and built environment and in the schools, but also to bring architects in schools, because architects are not used to talk with children and be involved in society, in Romania especially. So it was a big challenge for us to bring them out there to transmit education to children. And on the way we found out that we also need a very different educational approach to be able to mediate architecture to children. And we started in 2000, okay. Here? Oh, okay, I found the button. We started in 2011 with a very small project for the 3rd and 4th grade children. That means 9 and 10 years old. It was called EduArq in my city. And it soon grew in other projects that we completed with a small, for small children, the Arquitectura Mini, that was for 6 and 8 years old, another project for kindergarten children, and one for teenagers. And all these educational programs are free in schools, and they are spread all over the country. And for this, we discovered that we need 3 very important projects. We need to have very well-trained teachers and also architects, so we create training programs. We need also very good research teams for new programs, but we also needed money for all these things. So we created a lot of fundraising events and fundraising methods to be able to support all these programs. I will tell you a little bit more about our first educational program, because it's already implemented in the whole country, and it has more than 4,000 students by now. And it was a big success because there was nothing on the market at that time. So it was the first project on architectural education for children. Its main aim was to make children aware of the built environment they live every day, and to understand its values and to stimulate their imagination and their practical skills by building a model of their ideal neighborhood. As you see there, some of them just built an ideal model of a science fiction neighborhood, as here in the picture. This program was financed by the Chamber of Romanian Architects and was supported. We have a big support from the Department of Educational Sciences of the University of Bucharest. And I've been talking about a different approach. We try to make the children learn this new curriculum on a base project structure. So they have first to observe and then to analyze their built environment and then build and present their works. And through this process, they have to discover 5 tools to understand architecture, better to say, to understand the built environment of their city. We thought that the first tool to understand it is the tool of the scale and the proportions. The second tool was the space and materialities, the third, the place, the fourth, the city, and the fifth, sustainability. And with all these tools, they can build the ideal neighborhood in a workshop. So I make a very short presentation of these tools. We thought that scale proportion is the first and most easier thing for these children that never been in contact with any built environment education and architecture. Because they have to understand that the man is a measure of everything, so they began by measuring themselves, by mocking up the Vitruvius man, by measuring the built environment with their bodies, or by trying to relate to the distance with their own eyes. And why we put them to measure the built environment with their body, because they have to build their model using a Lego figure that will be the measure of all things. So if you want to make a room, you have to measure with a Lego man that to fit in that room, to make the bed, the chair, the table, exactly on the proper measure. And it was very easy for them to understand what scale actually means, and how big, and where are the windows and the doors of a Lego figure house. So they built more rooms that we actually asked for them. The second book was called Space and Materiality. We actually wanted to call it the Architect Tools, but we said it will be too confusing for children, so we have to explain to them that architects work with space, with shapes, with materials, with lights, with colors, and as a result, it's like music. It's based on rhythm and composition. And they started also with exploring the close neighborhood, trying to find the shadows, watch how they move, trying to guess materials, to understand what material texture is, beginning to understand how a facade of a house is made, and trying to find the details, the lights, how the shadow falls. It took quite a long time, but they enjoyed these activities very much because they were outside, and it was a totally different thing from their usually classes. And then back in the class, they played with very simple volumes, or they play with light, trying to understand what direct light or indirect light or white or colored light means. And in the end, they fixed their Lego buildings and painted them with colors, like all the children. And they say, okay, our project is finished. But there comes a third part, the place. We wanted to put it at the beginning, the place, because the context actually makes architecture and built environment what it is. But the children wouldn't understand this. And we let them build the house how they wanted. And then we told them, you know, now you have to change it because your house doesn't live in the clouds. It is linked to the earth, and this thing puts a lot of conditions on your house, and you have to change it. So they have to learn about the natural setting, geography, climate, the place spirits, place memory. And they were on expedition in the neighborhood, divided in 3 teams. One team was of reporters. They tried to find one old person to hear the story of the neighborhood. One team was taking pictures, and one team was collecting various things, like from leaves to leaflets of events. And with this, they could understand better their neighborhood, and after this, they have a bigger picture of how a house in a specific place should be. And that specific place is actually the city, which is a big, big story. And we were amazed that the children knows a lot about how a city works, what are the functions of the city, but they know very little about landmarks and how to find their way in the city. So we decided to put them see the city from 2 different points of view. One from the street level, when you should find the landmarks to find your way home. So they have to find their landmarks to find their way home, and they have to draw subjective map of their way to school. And the other way to see the city is from the bird's place. If you are a bird, you see the city from above, or if you look at the Google map. And you must understand that the cities are made of 3 very important spaces: the built spaces, the empty spaces, and the green spaces. And these spaces just play like in a game, and they make a pattern, and they have a very nice workshop with these patterns, trying to find out which pattern belongs to which city. And after this, we have to explain them that actually every city has rules. And these rules are negotiable, and they have to play the game of negotiation. So there was one child who was the chief architect, there was another one who was an investor, and the other children were the neighbors. So the investors want something to build on his land, and he has to negotiate with the city hall, to the architect, and to the neighbors, to the future neighbors, what building he should have there. And this game was very successful because it lasted many, many discussions and negotiations. And finally, all the investors didn't want to invest anything. and they just do what the neighbors wanted. That doesn't happen in real life, actually. So it makes place for the fifth tool called sustainability. Children learn a lot about sustainability in schools. They are not very well aware what it really is. We also showed them a lot of things about green cities, but we wanted them to understand that they are a small part in the row of generations, and their choices of today have a big influence on the cities of tomorrow. Sorry. And to explain this, we invented a very simple and funny game called the bread game. Every team has a long baguette, long bread, and every child represents a generation. And they have to cut slices. And you cut one slice, and when your turn comes back, you cut another one. But if you cut the first slice is bigger, you won't have anything when your turn comes next. So the team that has more slices in his bag was the winner. That means they use a resource, a limited resource, in a very sustainable way. So they cut small slices every time. That was enough for all the generations. I want to put a movie, how I do it. Okay, before the movie, a few words about the workshop. The workshop was the funniest part, because in the Romanian school, the didactic method is very classical, and they don't have much place for experimentation and teamwork. So usually this kind of activity was very attractive to children. They receive 3 empty plates. That means they have 3 pieces of land, limited, where they have to put their neighborhood. And they make a very simple design of their neighborhood, put posters where they should put their houses, what it was in their houses. And then was a big test to see if their houses fit in that piece of land. And of course they didn't. So they have to renegotiate and make them smaller, or many children have to make together a new building. And in the end, the neighborhood, that was a classroom after the workshop, always looked like this. In the end, they might have some science fiction model like this with a water city, or more like a common city. Here we bring all the models together in a big exhibition at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Bucharest. And they have to, the classes came and they have to have a discussion between them. Each class put questions to the others and see if the others learned the course better than them. And how I go back? With this one? Ah, okay. I just put a very small movie, if I have time.
Europe, where you'll get down. You're never running from this town. And I think you said you'll never get anything better than this. now we're giving you the look, giving you the look, but just remember how we shook. And all the things we took. This time's the oldest friend of mine.
That was only the first part of the course, and then the workshop came. For this course, we developed a series of educational tools. The first one was a teacher's guide, because all the teachers and the architects that worked in the schools wouldn't have been there if they didn't have a guide. It was too difficult for them to follow the lessons, so they have a guide with everything they have to do in the lesson. Sometimes they just keep all the lines in the guide very strictly. That wasn't exactly the idea. We wanted them to be more creative, but some people are not, some are. This was a pupils' workbook. The workbooks, they have a page where they can find all the information of the lesson, and the other pages were for different exercises. Every tool had a different color, a different logo to make children remember it and had it somewhere in their memory for the future. And also image library for teachers and architects with pictures. They can put more pictures or take some pictures out. And now I will tell you a little bit more about the other projects we have. This is a project for smaller children from 6 to 8 years old. It's more poetic and approach to architecture. The main task was to make children understand the idea of genius loci. Actually, the idea is that every place has its own characteristics, and the people that inhabit that place have their own characteristics, and they put their print on the specificity of that place. It begins with a story of two fantastic creatures, one symbolizing animals and one symbolizing the natural world, the plants, that were on a quest to find the perfect place for their village. And the children follow these two creatures on their quest. And they pass through various cities where very weird people live. There was a city with people that live only on water. There was a city where people were very, very lazy. There was a city where people like to walk and they have only roads everywhere. There was a place with people that like to look at the stars, and so on. And children have to develop for every character a different story, and then The second part of the course was to imagine the places where those strange characters live. And every character live in a different, in a village made of a certain material. Some live in a village made of paper, some live in a village made of clay, in a village made of sticks, and so on. And finally, they decide for the two famous and fantastic creatures what kind of village and what is the material that it will be made of, and they have to build it. And of course, to present it to their friends. Our next project that is in development this year, in testing, it's for teenagers, and it's about their school. The schools in Romania are very, very obsolete and very dull buildings. And most of the children realize that they need different places to learn. And we want to make them explore and discover the schools, find the good and the bad parts, and by trying to try to use the design thinking method to propose a change in their school, a little or a big change. It doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is that they should be aware that the school has to be different, and on this way they will learn about better schools and better learning environments. And maybe after 2 years we'll have more to say about this project. We also have 3 other projects, but I don't present them here. It's one for kindergarten. It's based on basic spatial experience. It's just in testing. And the other is in research. It's about the cultural heritage of the villages. And the third is for safety in schools. This project came quite out of the blue this autumn when we had a big fire tragedy in Bucharest where we lost some of our friends, and we decided to promote this project for them because most of the schools also don't have very well fire and safety regulations, and the children and teachers should be aware of them. Every year in April, we have a short period of conferences for children. We wanted to invite Romanian architects who have interesting projects or experiences to share them with children, and it was a very big challenge for the architects because they have to adapt their speech and make it attractive for children and teenagers, and some of them didn't really want to come. Some of them come several times. And other projects, small projects, workshops, usually made in connection with public events and architectural events, like this one that is made every summer in Street Delivery. It's an event in Bucharest and in Cluj where people took a street and make it their own, and there are a lot of events on the street. And here kids built a city every single hour. The city was transforming with the new children coming to make something else on this. We also have some vocational workshops. This one was for designing a hanger for clothes. You see the ideas. It's the one below with the hanger of a guy who likes sports, and he needs a lot of space on his hanger. And we began this year some workshops for art museums. This was a first one, teaching them how to draw like an architect in the museum exhibition. But there will be more. And as I've told you before, we tried to make a big network of architects and teachers that will be interested in this subject. And we have to train them very, very well every September. For 2 or 3 days in 7 cities, we have these training courses. And these training courses are also online, but they have to meet to make a team, because it's very important that the architect works very well with the teacher and the team is working smoothly. These workshops are sponsored by the Union of Architects, which is different from the Chamber of Architects. This is just a small overview of the cities and villages where we have classes. We grow quite quickly from 2012 to 2015. And now we have almost 3,500 children in the programs. I'm not sure how many will be next year, but this is an approximate figure. And also more than 100 architects per year. They usually change every year. Some of them stay, some of them go doing something else, because they do everything on a voluntary basis. But we still have some volunteers that come every year. And for this network, we developed a series of conferences like this one, called the Arquitectura Talks. In November, we were very happy to have the work group of UIA, Architecture and Children, to have a presentation there. And I also told you we have to make fundraising events for our programs, because they are all free. And we go to various companies, but it was very difficult, so we invented an event when we asked our friends, architects and designers, to design a birdhouse for a small bird last year and for a big bird this year. And these birdhouses that are very different and very special were sold by silent action to various companies that work in the field of real estate and construction. And so we raise money for the program every year. And this is a picture from the first exhibition. I don't have the pictures of the exhibition of today. It was 3 days ago. And we also put our volunteers to work a little bit. They have to run or to swim or to go cycling. There are many sports events where you can participate, and you have a cause. An educational cause, in our case, to raise money for. So here are some of them. And do I have time or no? Okay, I'm finished. With some questions we had from our collaborators in educational sciences, because we needed to know how to measure and how to convince the authorities and sponsors that architecture for children has a great value, and help them develop a lot of skills. And if you had any clues about these questions, if there are any real studies and researches on the benefits in child development gained from architectural educational programs, contact me, because I couldn't find any. And I want to thank you very much. And here is our contact. It's a drawing of a child, of a city scene from above. Thank you.